Taylor Swift, Michelle Obama, Sally Ride, Serena Williams. These are the famous former Girl Scouts that director Alyssa Namas proudly rattled off in her promotional video for Cookie Queens. Notice anyone missing from that list? How about the woman whose name is literally attached to the project as executive producer? How about Meghan Markle, who has made her supposed Girl Scout background part of her personal brand? The silence is deafening, folks, and the internet has absolutely noticed. This viral video is doing more damage to Meghan's Hollywood credibility than any tabloid headline ever could, because this time, the shade is not coming from the British press or disgruntled palace sources. This time, the shade is coming from inside the house. The footage in question dropped during December, a promotional clip designed to drum up excitement for Cookie Queens ahead of its Sundance Film Festival premiere. In it, director Alyssa Namas enthusiastically lists the accomplished women who once wore the Girl Scout uniform, building anticipation for her documentary about female empowerment through the iconic organization. She name-drops a pop superstar, a former First Lady, a legendary astronaut, and a tennis champion. 4 incredibly famous women, all highlighted with obvious pride, and yet somehow, inexplicably, the director managed to forget her own executive producer. The woman who should have been the perfect bridge between celebrity and subject matter. The woman who claims she sold cookies door to door as a young girl in Los Angeles. Meghan Markle did not warrant so much as a passing mention. Let us be brutally honest here. This is not an accidental oversight. Directors do not forget to mention their executive producers, especially not when those producers happen to be one of the most talked about women on the planet. Especially not when that producer has a direct personal connection to the documentary's subject matter. This was either a deliberate choice or a stunning indication that Meghan's involvement with this film is not what the Sussex camp wants us to believe. Either explanation is absolutely devastating for her Hollywood ambitions. Sources close to the production are already whispering that the December timing of this video tells a damning story. If Meghan had been genuinely involved in Cookie Queens from the beginning, if she had been a hands-on producer who contributed meaningfully to the creative vision, there is simply no universe in which the director would fail to highlight that connection. One industry observer put it bluntly to reporters, "You do not leave money on the table like that. Having a duchess attached to your Girl Scout documentary is a publicist's dream unless something has gone very wrong behind the scenes." The Sussex squad has been working overtime trying to spin this footage as meaningless, but the excuses are getting increasingly desperate. And the timing raises even more uncomfortable questions about when exactly Harry and Meghan attached themselves to this project. The Sundance Film Festival should have been a triumphant moment for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This was their chance to step out of the tabloid shadow and into the spotlight as serious Hollywood players. This was supposed to be proof that Archwell Productions was more than a vanity project, that Harry and Meghan could hold their own among legitimate filmmakers and industry heavyweights. They arrived at the festival with cameras flashing and handlers hovering, ready to cement their reputation as producers worth taking seriously. Instead, what unfolded over the course of their Sundance appearance has become a masterclass in how not to navigate Hollywood. The setting was Park City, Utah, where for decades the most anticipated independent films have premiered to audiences of tastemakers, buyers, and critics who can make or break a project's commercial future. Cookie Queens, a documentary about Girl Scout cookie entrepreneurs produced through the Sundance Catalyst program, was positioned as Archwell's latest offering. On paper, it seemed like a perfect fit for the Sussex brand. Female empowerment, entrepreneurship, wholesome Americana with a progressive twist. All the boxes were checked. Harry and Meghan made their entrance with the kind of choreographed precision that has become their trademark. The red carpet moments, the strategic positioning, the careful curation of every photograph. But almost immediately, something felt off. Body language experts who analyzed footage from the premiere noticed tension between Meghan and several key figures associated with the film. The warmth that should exist between collaborators was conspicuously absent. Smiles looked forced. Physical positioning seemed deliberately maintained to create distance. Industry insiders who attended the Sundance events were reportedly buzzing with observations about the dynamic between the Sussexes and the creative team. One source described the atmosphere as professionally polite but noticeably cold. Another noted that the people who actually made this film did not seem thrilled about sharing their moment. These are not the whispers you want circulating at a festival where relationships and reputation are everything. What makes this even more damaging is the context. Harry and Meghan have been aggressively pursuing Hollywood legitimacy for years now. They signed massive deals with Netflix and Spotify, promising premium content that would justify the reported $100 million those companies invested. Yet project after project has underdelivered, both critically and commercially. Sundance represented an opportunity to change that narrative, to prove that Archwell could attach itself to quality work and add genuine value to a production. But the director's viral video is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The premiere itself was riddled with awkward moments, protocol breaches, and visual evidence that the Sussexes may have overestimated their welcome. What happened inside that theater tells an even more troubling story. The promotional video heard round the internet deserves a closer examination because the details are even more damning than the initial impression suggests. When director Alyssa Nama sat down to record her talking points about Cookie Queens, she made deliberate choices about which famous Girl Scouts to highlight. Taylor Swift, the biggest pop star on the planet, whose every move generates headlines and whose endorsement can move markets. Michelle Obama, a former First Lady whose memoir broke publishing records and whose name carries instant credibility. Sally Ride, the first American woman in space, representing barrier-breaking achievement. Serena Williams, arguably the greatest athlete of her generation and a symbol of determination against all odds. These are heavy hitters. These are names that command immediate respect and attention. And then there is Meghan Markle, who was allegedly an executive producer on the very film being promoted, who has spoken publicly about her Girl Scout experiences, who could have provided that perfect celebrity to subject matter connection that makes promotional content sing. She was not mentioned. She was not referenced. She did not exist in this video. Allow me to translate what this omission really means. In Hollywood, executive producers are typically highlighted in promotional materials because their names add perceived value to a project. When you have a famous face attached to your documentary, you use that face. You leverage that recognition. You do not pretend they are not involved unless there is a very good reason to distance yourself from them. One industry publicist who spoke on condition of anonymity was characteristically blunt. Either she was not really involved when this was filmed, or the director wanted nothing to do with promoting her involvement. Neither option looks good for Meghan. The timing of the video adds another layer of suspicion. Filmed in December, weeks before the Sundance premiere, this promotional content was created during the crucial period when the film's marketing strategy was being finalized. If Meghan had been a meaningful contributor to Cookie Queens from its inception, if her creative input had shaped the documentary in any significant way, her connection to the Girl Scout organization would have been promotional gold. Directors do not leave that kind of ammunition unused unless something has fundamentally broken down in the working relationship. Sources familiar with the production timeline suggest the video serves as a timestamp, a piece of evidence that reveals when the Sussexes actually became attached to the project. And that timeline allegedly contradicts everything Meghan's team wants the public to believe about her involvement. The narrative they have been pushing is one of deep personal investment, of a producer who cared about this story and wanted to help bring it to audiences. But if that were true, why would the director film promotional content that erases her entirely from the conversation? The whispers about last-minute attachments are growing louder, and what insiders are revealing about how Harry and Meghan actually got involved with Cookie Queens is raising serious questions about their entire production strategy. Here is where the story takes a turn that should make anyone paying attention deeply uncomfortable with the Sussex approach to Hollywood. According to multiple sources who have spoken about the production, Harry and Meghan did not discover Cookie Queens because they were passionate about Girl Scout entrepreneurs. They did not develop this project from scratch or nurture it through the challenging early stages of documentary filmmaking. Instead, reports suggest they attached themselves to the film only after learning it had already been accepted to the prestigious Sundance Film Festival through the Catalyst program. Let that sink in for a moment. The allegation is not that the Sussexes supported promising filmmakers and helped them reach a major festival. The allegation is that they waited until the hard work was done, until the acceptance letter was already in hand, and then swooped in to claim producer credits on someone else's achievement. If true, this represents a pattern of behavior that Hollywood insiders find deeply troubling. The director herself inadvertently confirmed the timeline in comments that have now taken on new significance. When describing the producing team behind Cookie Queens, Alyssa Nama specifically referred to Meghan and Harry as joining most recently among the executive producers. Most recently, those two words carry enormous weight. They suggest the Sussexes were not founding partners in this creative endeavor, but rather late additions who came aboard after the project had already proven its viability. One industry veteran who has worked on multiple Sundance films explained why this matters. Executive producer credits are supposed to mean something. They should represent people who took a risk on a project, who provided funding or creative guidance or access that made the film possible. When you attach yourself at the end just to ride the coattails, you are not producing. You are cosplaying as a producer. This assessment may sound harsh, but it reflects a genuine frustration within the industry about how vanity credits can dilute the meaning of creative contributions. The Sundance Catalyst program, through which Cookie Queens earned its festival slot, is designed to support emerging filmmakers and diverse voices. It provides resources and guidance to help documentarians complete their projects and reach audiences. The program represents exactly the kind of grassroots filmmaking that the festival was built to celebrate. For the Sussexes to allegedly attach themselves only after Catalyst had already done its work feels to many observers like an appropriation of someone else's success story. Sources close to the production claim the late involvement created significant tension behind the scenes. The people who had poured years of their lives into Cookie Queens suddenly found themselves sharing credit and spotlight with celebrity newcomers who had contributed little to the actual filmmaking process. One insider described the dynamic as resentful would be too strong, but definitely not enthusiastic. Another suggested the creative team felt their work was being hijacked for Sussex brand purposes, but the alleged timeline controversy is only part of the awkwardness that defined the Sundance premiere. The body language between Meghan and certain key figures tells its own devastating story. Among the faces at the Cookie Queen's premiere was Amy Redford, and for those unfamiliar with Sundance royalty, her surname should tell you everything you need to know about her significance. Amy is the daughter of Robert Redford, the legendary actor who founded the Sundance Film Festival and transformed Park City into the independent film capital of America. Her presence at any premiere carries weight, her endorsement matters, and her body language during photographs with Meghan Markle has become a subject of intense analysis for reasons that are impossible to ignore. The photos in question show Amy Redford standing next to Meghan, and even a casual observer can detect that something is not quite right. Amy's arm is positioned down rather than around Meghan in the typical friendly photo pose. Her shoulder appears twisted away, creating physical distance despite their proximity. Her expression reads as polite at best, pained at worst. These are not the body language cues of someone enjoying a collegial moment with a fellow film professional. These are the subtle signals of someone enduring an uncomfortable obligation. What makes the contrast so striking is how Amy Redford appeared in photos with Prince Harry. With the Duke, she seemed genuinely warm, engaged, and comfortable. The difference in her demeanor between the two Sussexes was dramatic enough that multiple observers noted it independently. One body language expert who reviewed the footage stated plainly that her entire energy shifts between them. With Harry, she is open and present. With Meghan, she is guarded and withdrawn. Now let us be clear about what this means and does not mean. Body language analysis is not an exact science, and people have off moments during press events all the time. But Amy Redford is not some random attendee who happened to wander into frame. She is Hollywood aristocracy, the daughter of the man whose vision created the very festival where this premiere took place. She has navigated countless red carpets and photo opportunities throughout her career. If she appeared uncomfortable with Meghan, it was not because she does not know how to pose for pictures. Sources who attended the Sundance events have suggested that Amy's visible coolness reflects a broader sentiment within the film community. One insider noted that people were polite because professionalism demands it, but there was definitely a sense that the Sussexes were not particularly welcome. Another observed that industry folks have long memories about who helps a project and who just shows up for the glory. These whispers may be impossible to verify, but the photographic evidence speaks volumes. When even Hollywood royalty cannot muster convincing enthusiasm for a photo op with Meghan Markle, it raises serious questions about her reputation within the industry she has spent years trying to conquer. But the cold shoulders from festival figures pale in comparison to what happened when Meghan took the stage. There are unwritten rules in the film industry that everyone who works in the business understands implicitly. These protocols exist to maintain respect among collaborators and ensure that credit flows to those who actually create the work. One of the most fundamental rules involves speaking order at premieres and screenings. Directors speak first. They are the creative visionaries who shape the project from concept to completion. Even the most powerful producers, even A-list celebrities with massive followings, defer to the director at their own premiere. Brad Pitt does not speak before his directors. Steven Spielberg does not speak before directors on projects he produces. This is simply how things work. Meghan Markle apparently did not receive that memo, or perhaps she received it and decided it did not apply to her. At the Cookie Queen's premiere, Meghan took the stage before director Alyssa Namas, breaking protocol in a way that sent ripples of disbelief through the industry professionals in attendance. One observer who has covered dozens of Sundance premieres stated flatly that you just do not do that. The director is the captain of the ship. For a producer to speak first is a massive breach of etiquette. Another noted that it tells you everything about how she views the hierarchy. She is the star of everything, even when she is not. But the protocol breach was not the only eyebrow-raising behavior during the speeches. Witnesses report that while director Alyssa Namas was addressing the audience, Meghan appeared to be moving around in the background, seemingly attempting to stay visible within the camera frame. Whether this was intentional or simply unconscious positioning, the optics were not flattering. A producer should be graciously supporting their director during that moment, not competing for visual attention. Then came what multiple observers described as a visible shift in Meghan's demeanor. When Alyssa Namas described Cookie Queens as cute, Meghan reportedly seemed uncomfortable with the characterization. For a documentary about young Girl Scout entrepreneurs, cute seems like a perfectly appropriate description. But apparently the word did not align with how Meghan envisions the Archwell brand. One source noted that she clearly wanted this to be seen as prestige, important filmmaking, not something adorable. The mismatch between her expectations and reality was written all over her face. The irony is staggering. Here was an executive producer who allegedly attached herself to a project after it was already accepted to Sundance, breaking industry protocol to speak before the actual creative force behind the film, and then appearing dissatisfied with how that creative force chose to describe her own work. The entitlement on display was not lost on the industry professionals watching from the audience. The premiere speeches should have been a celebration of the filmmakers who brought Cookie Queens to life. Instead, they became another data point in the growing case that Meghan Markle struggles to share spotlight or credit with anyone. But the empty seats waiting for the film to begin told an even more humiliating story. The numbers do not lie, and for the Cookie Queens premiere, those numbers paint a devastating picture of just how far the Sussex star has fallen. When the documentary began screening, approximately 150 seats remained empty in the theater. Let me repeat that. 150 empty seats at a Sundance premiere featuring two of the most famous people on the planet. Eventually, waitlisters were allowed to fill some of the gaps, tightening the vacancy to roughly 60 empty spots. But here is the crucial detail. Those waitlisters were occupying seats that pass holder attendees had paid up to $6,900 to access. The people who actually paid premium prices to be at Sundance did not prioritize seeing the Sussex production. For context, let us compare this to other screenings at the same festival. Olivia Wilde's film had to turn away 100 ticket holders because demand so drastically exceeded capacity. Even a small horror movie from relatively unknown filmmakers left 40 people standing outside, unable to get in. These films generated genuine excitement. They had audiences clamoring for admission. Cookie Queens, backed by a former prince and a former actress who have dominated global headlines for years, could not fill the room. Sources familiar with Sundance scheduling noted another telling detail. Cookie Queens was given an early morning screening slot, typically a time reserved for lower priority films that the festival expects will generate less audience interest. The prime evening slots go to anticipated crowd pleasers and awards contenders. The morning slots go to projects that need to prove themselves. The scheduling decision itself was a signal that Sundance organizers did not expect massive turnout. They were right. Perhaps more damaging than the empty audience seats was the absence of high-paying industry buyers. These are the distribution executives and streaming platform representatives who attend Sundance looking for acquisitions. They are the people who can write checks that turn festival darlings into commercial releases. According to reports, many of these crucial figures opted to skip the Cookie Queen screening entirely. One industry analyst explained that buyers attend films they think they might actually want to buy. The fact that so many passed on this tells you what they think of the Sussex brand as a selling point. The empty seat humiliation represents a concrete, measurable rebuke to the notion that Harry and Meghan bring value to projects they attach themselves to. Their names on the poster did not fill the theater. Their famous faces on the red carpet did not generate buying interest. Their supposedly massive global following did not translate into Sundance buzz. For a couple who reportedly believe they deserve $100 million production deals, this was a harsh reality check delivered very publicly. But the premiere awkwardness was far from over. An interview question about Meghan's daughter would soon reveal just how uncomfortable she becomes when conversations go off script. Every skilled interviewee knows how to handle basic questions with grace and ease. When you are promoting a Girl Scout documentary and someone asks whether your daughter might join Girl Scouts, the answer should practically write itself. This is softball territory. This is an opportunity to share something personal, connect with audiences, and demonstrate the authentic link between your life and the project you are promoting. Instead, when faced with this simple question about daughter Lilibet potentially becoming a Girl Scout, Meghan Markle delivered what can only be described as a verbal car crash. Her actual response went something like this: "It is interesting. I think we will continue to explore whatever feels right." Read that again. This is not the answer of someone who has thought about whether her daughter might participate in an organization she claims transformed her own childhood. This is not the response of a mother with clear values about extracurricular activities. This is the fumbling non-answer of someone caught off guard by a question that should have required zero preparation to handle smoothly. Allow me to translate what that word salad actually means. Meghan had no authentic answer because she has either not thought about this at all or cannot commit to anything that might be fact-checked later. The vagueness, the hedging, the explore, whatever feels right phrasing all suggests someone desperately trying to avoid saying anything concrete that could be contradicted or criticized. It is a politician's answer in a situation that called for a mother's warmth. What makes this particularly notable is the pattern it reveals. Meghan consistently becomes visibly uncomfortable whenever she is asked personal questions about her children in settings she does not fully control. In carefully produced Netflix content where she can approve every frame, she references Archie and Lilibet freely. In live interviews where follow-up questions are possible, she deflects and dodges. The contrast is striking and raises legitimate questions about authenticity. One media analyst who reviewed the interview noted that she treats questions about her kids like trapdoors. There is always this sense that she is calculating risk rather than sharing genuinely. Another observed that for someone promoting a documentary about young girls and their activities, not being able to speak naturally about her own daughter and activities is a pretty significant disconnect. These assessments may seem harsh, but they reflect a widely shared observation about Meghan's interview style. The Lilibet question fumble became another viral moment from the Sundance appearance, but not the kind of viral that helps a film find an audience. Instead, it added to the growing sense that the Sussexes were out of their depth at this premiere, struggling to navigate situations that should have been easy wins. And speaking of struggles, the reception Cookie Queens received from potential buyers, and even the Sussexes' own distribution partner, was about to deliver another devastating blow. Here is a fact that should make every Sussex defender pause before celebrating their Hollywood careers. Netflix, the streaming giant that signed a massive deal with Arch12 Productions and has a first-look arrangement requiring them to consider Sussex projects before anyone else, reportedly passed on Cookie Queens. Let that sink in. The company that is already contractually obligated to work with Harry and Meghan looked at this documentary and said no thank you. If your own partner is not interested, what does that tell the rest of the industry? The Netflix rejection fits a troubling pattern for Archwell Productions. Despite the enormous investment the streamer made in the Sussex partnership, the content produced has consistently underperformed both critically and commercially. Their previous documentary projects have generated initial curiosity followed by rapid drop-off in viewership. The much-hyped docuseries about their own lives generated headlines but reportedly failed to maintain audience engagement past the first few episodes. Chart performance has been underwhelming across the board. Industry observers have begun to wonder openly whether the Sussex brand is actually toxic for content. One entertainment analyst suggested that their presence on a project creates expectations that cannot be met. People tune in expecting drama and revelations, not earnest documentaries about cookie sales. There is a fundamental mismatch between what their celebrity promises and what their productions deliver. Another noted that at some point the numbers speak for themselves. Their stuff does not perform. That is just reality. As of the Sundance premiere, no streaming service or distributor had stepped forward to purchase Cookie Queens. The film that was supposed to demonstrate Archwell's ability to identify and support quality content was struggling to find a home. The producers who allegedly jumped on board only after Sundance acceptance had already been secured now found themselves attached to a project that might never reach a wide audience. The irony would be delicious if it were not so predictable. What does it mean when Netflix, the company paying the Sussexes millions for content, looks at their latest offering and walks away? It means the people with the most financial incentive to believe in Sussex Productions have lost confidence. It means the industry is watching and drawing conclusions. It means the Hollywood dream that prompted Harry and Meghan to abandon royal duties is looking increasingly like a mirage. The Cookie Queen situation represents more than one documentary struggling to find distribution. It represents the culmination of years of overpromising and under-delivering, of celebrity attached to projects without adding genuine value, of a brand that generates attention without converting that attention into commercial success. Let us tally the wreckage from what should have been a triumphant Hollywood moment for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. The director of their documentary filmed promotional content that completely erased Meghan from the narrative of famous Girl Scouts, a snub that has gone viral and sparked endless speculation about the true nature of their working relationship. The premiere itself saw roughly 150 empty seats when the lights went down, eventually reduced to 60 after waitlisters filled spots that paying pass holders had abandoned. The scheduling placed Cookie Queens in an early morning slot reserved for lower priority films. Industry buyers largely skipped the screening entirely. Even Netflix, contractually bound to consider Sussex content first, reportedly passed on acquiring the documentary. Then there was the human element of the humiliation. Amy Redford, daughter of the festival's founder and genuine Hollywood royalty, could barely contain her visible discomfort around Meghan in photographs while appearing warm and engaged with Harry. Body language throughout the premiere suggested tension between the Sussexes and the creative team whose work they were supposedly there to celebrate. Protocol was shattered when Meghan spoke before the director, and the simplest interview question about her daughter's potential Girl Scout involvement reduced Meghan to incomprehensible word salad. The irony of the timing adds another layer to this disaster. Just hours before walking the Sundance red carpet and seeking media attention for Cookie Queens, Prince Harry was sitting in a London courtroom continuing his legal battle against British newspapers over alleged media intrusion. The cognitive dissonance is remarkable. In one country, he complains about press coverage of his private life. In another country, he shows up for cameras to promote content about his family's projects. The contradiction is not lost on observers who note that the Sussexes seem to want media attention only on their exact terms and in quantities they can control. What does all of this mean for the future of Archwell Productions and the Sussex Hollywood experiment? The evidence suggests serious trouble ahead. Their supposed star power could not fill a single theater at America's most prestigious independent film festival. Their attachment to a project may have actually hurt its distribution prospects rather than helping. Their behavior at the premiere alienated the very industry professionals they need to succeed, and their own production partner is already declining to acquire their content. The Cookie Queens debacle will not end the Sussexes' Hollywood ambitions. They are too invested, both financially and emotionally, in this path to abandon it now. But it has provided a very public demonstration that fame does not automatically translate into filmmaking credibility, that celebrity attachment without genuine creative contribution gets noticed and resented, that the industry they desperately want to conquer has taken their measure and found them wanting. So here is the question that everyone is asking. Do you think the director intentionally snubbed Meghan in that viral video? Or is this proof that the Sussexes jumped on the project at the last minute and were never really part of the creative vision? Was the omission calculated shade or accidental revelation? Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you will not believe what is coming next.